Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to I can't even tell you how special of a Between Takes episode of Missing Frames this is. You're about to find out, though. I am your host, Shawn Eastridge, and joining me once again, I am so beyond delighted to have the gentleman from the Rest in Pictures podcast here with me. We've got Aaron Prescott.
Hello.
And we've got Brad Gullickson.
Good day.
And we are back reunited again. We wanted an excuse to talk about another franchise. We had so much fun doing the Batman franchise, and we wanted to do another one. So we were thinking, what is going on? What other franchises can we do? Can we tie it in to the Halloween season? And the answer to all of the above is yes. We did it. It's happening. We watched all the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, and we are here to discuss them right now. And before we discuss them, I just want to encourage all our listeners out there, if you haven't already, if you're just brimming with excitement at the possibilities of what this episode can contain, go ahead and give a 5-star rating to Missing Frames on iTunes. You know what? Give a 5-star rating to Rest in Pictures podcast too. Just give everything across the board. Just do it now before you listen to more of this episode and decide you changed your mind. Just go with your gut and make it happen. And
you should all know that the Nightmare on Elm Street remake is the best Nightmare on Elm Street film. 5 stars, please. Arrested Pictures. Thank you.
This is it. We're making this happen. So we greatly appreciate it. And if you leave a 5-star review for Missing Frames, I will read your review live on the air. It won't be live. It won't be on any air, but I will read it, and you will appreciate it, I hope. But anyway, you know what? We've got a lot of movies to cover. Gentlemen, let's just start from the beginning, and we'll do what we normally do on Missing Frames, which is I want to know, we'll start with Brad, what was your first exposure to the Nightmare on Elm Street series?
You know, I really should have predicted this question.
Same.
But I did not. Let me think real quick. I can not honestly remember the first time I saw the Nightmare films. There are certain films that I remember seeing for the first time. So I remember seeing Freddy's Dead for the first time. I remember seeing Freddy versus Jason for the first time.
Okay.
I remember being a kid and seeing ads for Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's my first exposure. I certainly knew of the character of Freddy Krueger before I ever saw the films. And I think Freddy's Dead was the first actual Nightmare film I saw. I didn't come to the original until probably after that. So sometime in like the mid to late 90s.
Okay. I have no idea where I was. I was a complete scaredy cat. Still am as a youngster, now into adulthood.
All the lights on are in here because
everything.
I was recording in the dark, and then Aaron came over. He's like, "Can we put a light on?" It's like this night light won't do it.
Please, mister.
No, so all the lights are on.
And so I was very vague into which ones I'd actually seen. Turns out I'd seen them all. I just don't. It wasn't never anything I really was seeking out. And that was true with most slasher movies. Where do you guys land on, was this the type of genre that you'd go out and eat up and just have to consume as soon as it became readily available? Or where and especially, I guess we're kind of talking about our holy trinity here of Freddy, Jason, and Mike Myers.
Oh, what? Chucky.
I'm just talking about a holy trinity. Chucky's...
Yeah. Michael
Chucky's
Myers is not
you do know
involved.
how trinities work, right? You know it's 3, right?
Chucky, Jason, and Freddy. Chucky
cares about
Michael
Bride
Myers.
of Chucky,
Mike Myers getting
Seed of
pushed to
Chucky. Those are the 3. That's the Trinity.
Yeah, that's the Trinity.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Don't forget Colt and Chucky. It's not bad. It's not bad.
This is great.
But where do you guys land on your slashers? Is it something that you're completely attracted to, and with our holy trinity that we are proposing tonight? I don't know which one we're going with, but where do you land with Freddy in that trinity?
Well, I will say this, because my answer ties into the first time I saw these movies, and I'm kind of with Aaron. For a long time, I was not a horror movie fan, and it didn't really change until I'd gotten into college and started seeing some genuinely great horror movies like Alien, like The
Urban
Exorcist, Evil Dead. Wait, what did you say?
Urban Legend.
Urban Legend, Wrong Turn 1 and 2. Those were definitely my top introductions to the franchise. But I was never into slasher films. It never really was my thing. And I knew about Freddy. I knew about Nightmare on Elm Street because 1994, I think, or 93 or 94 was when New Nightmare came out. And I remember I was in kindergarten maybe around that time, or first grade, and just seeing the posters and being just horrified, having no clue. I was like, a New Nightmare? I didn't even know there was an old Nightmare. What is this? But that was my first exposure. The first time I saw these movies might be the greatest possible viewing experience of any films I've had, which is I had a couple friends who used to do this thing where they were like, we are going to watch a movie franchise, but we are going to watch it all in one sitting. And I happened to come over on the evening they decided they were going to watch all the Nightmare on Elm Street movies in one sitting. And it was, I think they started at 7 p.m. on a work night. And thank God that those movies are short, because they watched all of them. And I managed to watch most of them while slipping in and out of consciousness. And that was my first exposure to Nightmare on Elm Street. But I'm a Freddy guy all the way. I think, as we'll discover as we're going through this, I think even the worst movies in this franchise, the conceit, the concept of Freddy, and being able to play with dreams and the possibilities that opens up, I think make for much more creative kills and opportunities than the other franchises ever did. And I don't know. That's just me.
I'm with you, Shawn. Like, in all seriousness, I'll kick Chucky out of the Trinity. I'll bring
Sorry,
Michael
Chucky.
Myers back
Because it's an easier metaphor. That's what I was trying to go for.
Freddy's my top. If we're talking, he's my top. He's definitely a top. I'm the bottom. I think Freddy Krueger is the most interesting from a visual standpoint as well as a narrative standpoint.
Yeah, you have these two other big hulking dudes,
silent,
they
boring
usually
guys.
get stabby at some point. And Freddy is this entity. He's kind of slight, and he's got the hat that like always kind of like, almost like a noir character living in shadows, and able to infiltrate dreams and stuff. And I think
he has a personality.
Exactly. That's what those are called.
Above everything else, I think. Because Halloween, and I to be fair, full disclosure, I've not seen all the Halloween movies. I've not seen all the Friday the 13th movies. But to me, it seems like it's a case of diminishing returns, but minus the zaniness that Freddy Krueger brings to the table. Because even with diminishing returns, every Nightmare movie, most Nightmare movies have something to offer and something fun.
Okay,
whereas
this is going to be a great episode.
Yeah,
I'm already heated. I'm seeing red. I'm at 10, guys.
I'll say this. How about this? Every Friday, or not every Friday movie. What am I talking about? I don't even know anymore. Which Trinity are we talking
Nightmare,
about?
Right?
Nightmare. Every Nightmare movie, minus the remake, has a great moment.
Everyone.
Right,
we're there.
The remake also has one great moment. Anyway, let's just keep going.
That's really it. I can't speak to Friday the 13th or Halloween because I haven't seen all of them. But they, like you said, Brad, it's just these hulking guys. They're kind of like, they don't say anything. They're mindless killing machines, and really all you have to root for are typically pretty bland teenage characters.
Yes.
With the Nightmare movies, you get the bland teenage characters, but you also get a villain you root for to kill them. Beyond just the fun of it, you get the excitement of seeing how Freddy kills them. It's not just like a machete to the face. It's like genuinely inventive, insane, and totally bonkers sequences.
Before Brad goes off on his tangent, I and this is not even a joke, he is literally just going to tell you out of both those series, the only one to watch is Jason X.
First off, I don't know about the only one, but Jason X is great. Like, we don't have time to go into why Jason X is great. It is great. I wrote an essay about it on Film School Rejects. You could read it. I think they all have something to offer. For me, the Halloween sequels, the worst of the Halloweens is the Pits. Like,
yes.
The Halloween Curse of Michael Myers,
Yes.
Return of Michael Myers, those are just really abysmal movies.
Yeah.
I think for the most part, all the Fridays are watchable for what they are. I think the Nightmare films, as we're going to talk about, are great.
Mm-hmm.
I would also throw in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies
Okay.
are a really interesting franchise.
Okay.
And yeah, Seed of Chucky's great. Okay.
That's great. We've got that out of the way. So let's just start with Nightmare on Elm Street 1. Do you guys remember when you first saw Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one?
No.
No, it's like what I was saying before. Like I just looked at all the Wikipedia entries just to get the dates in my head. Freddy's Dead came out in 1991, so I was 12 years old. That is certainly the first film I saw of his, and I'm pretty sure after I saw Freddy's Dead, I went back and watched all of them. But I honestly don't remember the first time I watched Nightmare on Elm Street.
You too, Aaron?
Yeah, it's all a fuzzy memory or maybe a nightmare, a dream.
I will say I have. So when I did this franchise or this marathon viewing of the franchise, I didn't really like any of them. I don't know. I had fun watching them, but I did not find any of them quality viewing experiences. Except for New Nightmare. The first time through, New Nightmare was the only one that intrigued me because I thought it was such an interesting idea. I hadn't seen Scream at this point, so I didn't realize that it was kind of a proto-Scream. But I bought the Blu-ray collection a few years back when my wife Sarah and I, when we first moved in together, we were just buying up horror movies left and right to stock up for Halloween viewing. And the Nightmare on Elm Street, I was like, we should get those movies. I don't really like them, but they're all kind of fun. And I sat her down to watch Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one, thinking I didn't like it. And I kind of was preparing her. I was like, look, it's not great, but, you know, it's good for its time. I don't know. And I watched it with her, and I kept looking at her, and I was like, I don't know what I was thinking. I love this. I don't know what state of mind I was in that put me in a bad mood or I wasn't able to appreciate it, but I absolutely love this movie. And it was such a strange experience to go into that thinking I didn't like it and then come out being like, wait a second, this is fantastic. But where do you guys stand on the first Nightmare on Elm Street? Do you think it's a classic? Do you think it still holds up today?
I mean, I feel like I like the concept and the idea of what it was going for more than I do the execution of the film.
Okay.
You know, I really like the ideas that are coming from it of Nancy, you know, sleeping in a room with a pot of coffee, with, you know, the type of kills that were coming out of it that were really way more inventive and creative than what the other, we'll call it the other two franchises, were coming up with at their beginning. And because they were kind of utilizing the imaginative side of Freddy, I feel like it didn't get to the heights that I wanted to. Maybe I'm looking at it from a perspective of I know what it can get to or what it could be, and so that's how I'm looking at it. I'd like to know what my thought is without the sequels in my mind.
So that's where my head's at, right? I think if Nightmare on Elm Street existed only as one film, you know, 1984's Wes Craven movie, I think I would call it a masterpiece. It would be one of my favorite horror films of all time. I think it is a bloody brilliant movie. You know, like, is there some wonky teen acting going on? Sure. Do all of the effects hit their mark? Not necessarily. Those that do are astonishing. But
oh yeah.
But my
like
problem with
the bedroom scene is insane.
And then when you learn how they did that with the rotating room and how the guy pouring the bucket of blood out of the bed actually ended up electrocuting himself, shutting down the whole gimbal and trapping the director and the stuntmen upside down in that gimbal.
It's pretty great.
It's pretty awesome. And when you rewatch that scene and you see the blood slide to the left of the frame, and the only reason that blood's sliding to the left of the frame is because the gimbal has lost control.
Yes.
Like, what a beautiful, serendipitous, and incredibly dangerous effect, right? Like, that's amazing. And the concepts are really great. The problem with A Nightmare on Elm Street is we know what A Nightmare on Elm Street becomes. And as somebody who came to the series later on in the sequels and kind of fell for the character of Freddy Krueger as a more cartoonish, jovial predator, like, that's the version that I really, really adore. And so when I rewatch the films like we did for this, like, I feel like I'm just getting through part one so I can get to really my favorites, which are movies that are probably not as well made.
Agreed. Yes.
That's such an interesting take on it, because I don't think that is a completely valid point of view, because watching through, I kind of feel the same way. I still love the movie. I think it's absolutely my favorite, and I still think it holds up as one of the best horror movies ever. But looking back on it with the perspective of, like, oh man, I know what's in store. I know how zany the character gets. I know how many amazing catchphrases he has. It's almost like Freddy is so kind of not low key, because he's still a prankster. He's still doing weird things, but it's definitely not on the level of entertainment that it would become later on.
He's not Freddy Krueger in A Nightmare on Elm Street. He's Fred Krueger, right?
Yeah, and that says it all.
And he is a really great concept. You know, he was this pedophile serial killer who, you know, the law could not stop, so a vigilante mob, a posse formed, trapped him, burned him alive, and now he wants revenge on their children, and he's going to attack them through their dreams. And that is a phenomenal idea, and I would love to read the novel version of A Nightmare on Elm Street, right?
Yeah, for sure. And as much as wonky as the acting is, because it definitely is, there's something so inherently charming about these characters that when I look back on the first one, because I really love Nancy. I really like I don't remember anyone else's names. I don't like them enough to remember their names, but I do
Tina.
like them. Tina. I love
Poor Tina.
And what's the boyfriend's Johnny Depp? Johnny Depp. I love him. I love all of them.
Glenn.
Glenn. They're all very likable, which doesn't happen a lot and doesn't happen more often in this franchise. But when I look back on this first one, especially at the tail end, I think that impresses me a lot, is how endeared I am to the characters, that I actually feel for them when they die, and I feel for their struggles, and I want them to survive, and I want them to make it through, which doesn't often happen, especially with the slasher genre. But how do you guys feel? Where are you on the spectrum of the characters? Do you like them? Did you find yourself endeared to them?
Absolutely. And when you do compare these kids to, say, the kids later on in the franchise, or the Friday the 13th film, which had already had, 3 movies by the time this movie had come out?
Yeah.
Like, there is a real personality to each and every one of them. I said Tina, but I love Tina in this film, and her death is really traumatic and ugly and gross. Mm-hmm. And then Rod, her boyfriend, how he ends up getting framed for it and dies in prison, faked suicide, that's some ugly murder going on in A Nightmare on Elm Street.
But also some really good storytelling going on, because it's not just, like we said, a killer going from one teenager to another. There's a rhythm to it, and it's like Freddy also has motive to really, do it, because wronged by the parents, so I'm going after the kids.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's a Wrath of Khan situation. It's a villain revenge.
It's perfect. And I love, like you said, we also don't really get... It's tough, like we're saying, to look at this movie and try to come at it with a clean perspective without the baggage of the franchise. But a good chunk of the movie is very, what's going on? Who is this guy? How are these kids getting killed? What's happening? They do a really great job of doling out the information in a way that keeps you engaged and kind of teases you along. So you're not like, it's not immediately like, okay, Fred Krueger, he's this guy. You're just like, wait, what? And what is this guy capable of? And why is this happening? I love that kind of keeps you on your toes throughout. And the movie is genuinely, it's one of those fun horror movies, but it's genuinely creepy and really unsettling. Like you said, Tina's death scene in particular, I think, is one of the standout moments in the film. But then it kind of devolves into the clunkiest Home Alone inspiring climax, I think. I think if there's anything I would take away from this movie, it's that Freddy Krueger by the end of it is not at all a threat whatsoever.
What's so interesting at the end of this film when all those booby traps are happening, you're like, oh, why is Nancy doing this Home Alone sequence? And I was watching the Never Sleeps Alone documentary, and they were interviewing Wes Craven, and he was saying, like, at the time he was obsessed with booby traps. And if you go back and you look at his filmography and you look at Last House on the Left, Nightmare on Elm Street, People Under the Stairs, you see a filmmaker who's like, I love booby traps.
Booby traps. Yeah. Give me that Goonies movie now.
Yeah. And he spawned, thank God for that, because he spawned a whole Home Alone franchise that we can all reap the benefits and rewards of.
But I mean, I think to your point, the ending of the movie is the least satisfying element of the film. Like once Glenn dies, I do tune out a little bit. I'm less engaged in the story. The story of her parents, drunk mom and misunderstanding cop dad, I just don't really connect with that in any way.
Yeah.
And I love John Saxon, but he's better in the franchise later.
That's true.
I agree with that. And it's like you said, it's a fun little addition, but the movie kind of loses steam at that point. And it's a lot of times I feel like when I'm thinking of like the first Halloween, in particular, because I haven't seen Friday the 13th, that I feel like its strongest act is the third act, when you finally have the final girl facing down the big bad. And Nightmare on Elm Street, it's the opposite. The entire movie is great, and then the final act is a little underwhelming. But I don't know if that's enough to hurt the movie.
I think they are operating in two different forms. Halloween is building to that ending. Like the whole film is just dread, and we're waiting for the Michael Myers strike on Laurie. Whereas this, all this amazing stuff is happening, and the concept is so interesting that when it slows down to just being Nancy versus Freddy, and the rules of how she's actually going to stop this guy is a little muddy. And then the end with the final coda with the dream sequence and the mom being pulled through the door. You're like, well, what? Yeah. So what happened? But I do love like the mom on the bed being pulled down into the netherworld or whatever. It's a great effect.
It's great. And I think Wes Craven said, because he didn't think, he was like, no, they're not going to be any sequels. Why would you make a sequel? This isn't going to be like a big thing. And he was super against the ending, which I think is very funny. He actually wanted it to be kind of like a little more cheery, I want to say. Like he wanted it to be like, oh yeah, Nancy won the day and it was just a dream. Or I don't know if he wanted to like have there be a little teaser, or if he wanted.
Oh, he did not. He did not want it.
Okay, so like that's what's so interesting to me, because I feel like the ending does not make sense.
Yes,
in context, but I like that it's more weird and creepy and unsettling than it would have been if it was just like, oh, Nancy got away and everyone's okay, and look, they all drove to school together.
As a final dream sequence, it is really effective. Like I do like that coda, even if I do feel like it runs against what we had just seen and messes with the rules a little bit. But Bob Shea, the New Line guy, the producer, the head honcho, he's like, hey, Wes Craven, I don't know if you know this yet, but Freddy Krueger has just built my studio. And I'm going to need a whole franchise of movies to take me to Lord of the Rings. I got to get to the Lord of the Rings. And Freddy's going to do that.
So what do we think? Best kill in the movie? Do we say Tina for Nightmare on Elm Street 1?
I go Glenn.
I go Glenn as
Glenn,
well.
okay.
Like that's just an iconic image
all right.
of just that blood spurting out. So so cool.
And it's Johnny Depp too. There's something
Yeah.
wonderful about that. I guess what's our rating scale on a scale of 1 to 5? Tongue phones. How many tongue phones do you want to give Nightmare on Elm Street 1?
I'll go for it. I guess I give it like a 3.5 tongue phones.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Aaron and I are on the same page right now.
page?
3.5 tongue phones.
How do you give a half of a tongue phone?
It's
like, is
just
it
the tip.
It's just.
I think I'm gonna go ahead and do. I'm gonna give it a 5. I love this movie so much.
Go for it.
I think it does. Even with the flaws, it is so successful. It's so successful at what it's trying to do, and I love the invention of it. Which brings us to Nightmare on Elm Street 2: Freddy's Revenge, which was put into production almost immediately after the film, the first one, was released, because they were like, like you said, Bob Shea was like, oh, wait a second. Let's make more of these. Let's make millions and millions of dollars. And the film was released less than a year after the first one. Just a little bit less than a year, but
That's
less
crazy.
than a year, which is insane. And it shows. It really shows. So, Aaron, where do you stand on Nightmare on Elm Street 2?
I really like it. There's something so fun about it. Like, it is, for me, and I feel like if you look at it, like we said, we're talking about the other franchises, and the Halloween franchise has number 3 that went into its own trajectory of we're going with, this anthology series where it's just like a story that happens to take place on Halloween. This feels like the Halloween 3 of the Elm Street franchise where, hey, we're taking the story. We're not really using the same rules, but we're taking this thing that made us money. Freddy Krueger, we're putting him in this movie, and it turns into something completely different where it's this, possession story, that's almost like a demonic thing. And it's really quite interesting. And I think especially with the whole, gay panic, undertones, overtones. I don't know how you want to look at it, but
I think
definitely overtones.
yeah. Well, and I think we need to defer to Brad on this, because you got to see the Scream Queen doc at Fantastic Fest, and I'm really excited to see that.
Yeah, the documentary is great.
Okay.
I think Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, may be one of the most interesting, if not the most interesting film in the entire franchise.
Yeah.
That's not to say that I think it's a great movie, Aaron, and it might actually be my least favorite of the franchise.
No way.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Wow.
but-
well, I side with Aaron. I've got to say, I don't think it's a good movie, but I find it so fascinating that I would almost say I love this one too for completely different reasons.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's not good, but there's so much about it when you think of it in the context of the production, how quickly they rushed it out, how they clearly had no idea what they wanted to do with the franchise. There's so much going on. Then you add the not so subtextual gay subtext, and it just becomes a completely bonkers experience. This is actually I was talking with Brad a few weeks back when we were talking about the Nightmare doing this episode, and he asked me what I thought my wife's favorite episode or favorite movie was in the franchise, and I said I think it's Dream Warriors, and she came back to me, and immediately I asked her, I said, which one is your favorite? And without missing a beat, she goes, oh, the gay one.
There we go.
So she loves it. I don't think this is her favorite. I think the first one's her favorite, but this is her favorite sequel.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't really blame her for that. It's so interesting. But
It's
I
really
hear...
compelling. There's something interesting that's going on, and I don't think we should look. I never really look at a movie in a way that I feel the filmmaker is intending for us. It's how I, take it from my perspective, and I found the main character so compelling, and I found just like the difference of it, like just kind of being wild and unwieldy, kind of refreshing, and like as much as I love the Halloween 3 of the Halloween franchise, where it's just like we don't care about the rules, we're not putting Mike in here, we're just going to do our own story. I like that this is its own story.
Yes, and I'm happy for you. And I agree that there is a lot in this film that is enjoyable and fascinating. I think it's more interesting in the context of the behind-the-scenes stuff with Scream Queen, My Nightmare on Elm Street, about Mark Patton's experiences on the film. I agree, Aaron. I think Mark Patton as the final boy in the movie is like incredibly compelling to watch. I even like Kim Myers as his almost girlfriend.
Yeah.
I think
she might be I think objectively the best performance in the movie.
Clue Gallagher's in this.
I do love Clue Gallagher in the movie, and I like Robert Ressler as the jock boy.
If you're gonna take out John Saxon, might as well put in Clue Gallagher.
Clue Gallagher's working in another movie. He's out to lunch in this film, and I love it. Like I really enjoy his performance, like when he's battling a parakeet and all that stuff. But it's just not. He's acting in a different film.
His better performance is in Never Sleep Again.
I think
yes, it is.
That is true. Also, really uncomfortable. I think writer David Chaskin does start out by peppering the film with a lot of homophobic dialogue, homophobic sequences. Of course, Mark Patton is homosexual, and a lot of his personality and being comes out in his performance. And so the homophobia and the heterosexuality are kind of in combat in the film, which is fascinating and uncomfortable and weird. And the idea of this male possession story of Freddy coming into Mark Patton's character, and the visuals that come, I don't want to jump ahead to the best kill, but when Freddy is born through Mark Patton,
it's great.
That's the best part of the movie by far.
Astonishing, right?
Well,
I think it's so boring, though.
Really?
Yes,
I
do agree.
Boring.
I do agree with that. I think the problem with the movie is actually part of the problem is Freddy himself is the least interesting element of the movie to me. Like to make the character, to take him from Dreamworld, which is where he has the most power and is the most interesting and compelling, and to say all of a sudden he's like, oh, now I want to take possession of a human and live through them to kill people. I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense. You have the best home field advantage. Why would you try to put yourself in the real world?
But even if
that
that's the
make
direction
sense.
they go, Sean, even if that's the direction they go, then I need to see that happening in the film. There's so many long stretches of nothing. It is so dull, Aaron.
I agree with that. I think the problem with the movie is there is a lot of just kind of like dull, like who cares what's going on. It's not really a horror movie other than the one scene with Freddy being born through the character
and
the
the
main
pool
character.
Party.
The pool party is pretty bad.
It's pretty bad,
yeah.
and it suffers from like just it's an
exploding
identity
bird.
crisis.
There is an exploding bird, but
You got
there are
that going
so
for ya.
many tones in this film.
Oh, I know.
It's a possession story. It's a slasher film. It's an exploding bird movie. It's a pool slaughter movie.
You're saying all the great things about this movie. I love
except it's stretched over the longest 87 minutes of your life.
Agreed.
But it also has a standout sequence, which again it kind of sums up the baffling nature of the movie. So the main character is
Jesse.
That's right, Jesse. So Jesse, he goes out to a gay bar where he runs into his coach, and it's like, is this a
Marshall
dream?
Bell?
Yeah, he runs into the gym teacher. It's like not clear if it's a dream or not, but then the dream, in the dream or reality, he's suddenly running laps around the gym, and then the gym teacher is murdered and his ass is slapped with a towel repeatedly after he's attacked by a bunch of balls.
Yeah,
that's right.
And it's the again, the metaphors are off the, not even under, it's all off the charts. But then it's like, oh no, this all actually happened. And it all it climaxes with that brilliant scream that Jesse has when he finds the glove on his hand. But like that sequence is so amazing, but so baffling because I still am like, is this a dream? Is this really happening? It's never clear in the movie.
I think the film is very confused. I think it is unsure of what it wants to be. I think director Jack Shoulder is not Wes Craven.
No.
You know, he's the New Line guy. He's who Bob Shea had do Alone in the Dark. And he's like, okay, you can follow up Wes Craven.
Mm-hmm.
That's not fair. And they rushed it. And, you know, again, sort of like how I feel about the first Nightmare on Elm Street, because I know where Freddy is going and because that version of Freddy is what I really want out of this franchise, I feel like I'm eating vegetables when I'm watching Nightmare on Elm Street 2. And
I like vegetables, Brad.
Yeah, I want to hear. So, what do you think, Aaron? I mean,
I
we're
just
kind of
like
tearing it up.
Yeah, I just like the wild, unwieldy, like nonsense of it all. Like it's a horror movie, it's a slasher movie. It's this guy that invades dreams. Do it all. I don't care if the whole movie's a dream sequence. Go for it.
Yeah.
The end.
So I find the movie way more endearing, I think, than I did the first time I watched it. And I think in retrospect, I like it a lot more than I thought I did. That being said, I don't think it's a good movie. And I think it's one of the, if you want to look at it from, I guess, a technical, from a filmmaking standpoint, from a storytelling standpoint, it's definitely one of the weaker entries in the franchise. But I still kind of like it a lot.
I
weird.
Super encourage the listeners to be on the lookout for Scream Queen, My Nightmare on Elm Street. It is a fascinating exploration of the production of this movie and the confused nature of everybody involved. You know, no one really knew what they were making with this film, and I think there is a lot of hindsight happening when they talk about the movie as well. But what is 100% clear is how this film's reception really, really hurt Mark Patton as a human being, and how he had to flee from the industry after the outpouring of contempt towards Nightmare on Elm Street 2 when it was released in 1985.
That's such a bummer.
And what's great about the documentary is it gives him a platform to confront everybody involved. And, you know, he really has a beef with David Chaskin, because David Chaskin has said some really heinous stuff in interviews before Scream Queen. And the movie climaxes with them sitting across from each other and having a conversation and getting it all out there. And man, it is riveting filmmaking. Highly, highly recommend Scream Queen.
Nice.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that. So I guess on a scale of 1 to 5 exploding parakeets, how many would you give Nightmare on Elm Street 2: Freddy's Revenge? Aaron, go first.
We're in a holding hands club with the first Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm going 3.5. Okay, I really dig this movie. I think there's just a lot of I think I always like movies that have like important history behind them as well.
Yes.
And so I put that baggage on it on top of the insanity that the movie is. And so I think because of the type of nightmarish, dreamlike state that we're supposed to live in a Freddy world, I'll kind of take what I'm given.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. What about you, Brad?
I'm going to give it 2 exploding parakeets, but
Okay.
I don't know if we talked about it a little bit, but the kids in this movie, the teens, these might be the best teens of the franchise.
Yeah,
they're not bad for sure.
They're pretty good. Like, you definitely feel for them. And I really like their performances. I like their characters. I just don't really like this movie.
Okay.
And I really, like, this time, rewatching it, coming off of the documentary, I really, really wanted to come away going like, Freddy's Revenge is the Halloween 3 of the franchise. It is the best movie. But I'm going to have to save that thought for later in this episode.
Can I also say that it's such a strange franchise that I'm completely okay with whatever rating kind of like anybody gives to it, because I'm like, no, I kind of understand what you're saying. You know, I just don't agree with you, but I completely get it.
All right.
You know, it's one of those kind of things.
Sean, what about you?
My mind gives it a 2, but my heart gives it a 3.
Go with your heart. Go with your heart.
I'm caught right in between. I think I'll give it 2.5 as a final thing.
All right.
I don't think it's a very good movie, but I find it extremely endearing, especially in the context of its history and its behind the scenes turmoil, and just the final product is so insane. But that, I think, what's interesting is, at the very least, regardless of how you feel about Freddy's Revenge, it essentially spawned the franchise. It made more money than the first one, so it proved that Freddy still had a life beyond Nightmare on Elm Street 1. And it gave us what I think is actually the first real Nightmare on Elm Street sequel, which is Dream Warriors, which had Wes Craven's involvement. He helped come up with the story and the screenplay. Frank Darabont is credited. I think this was his first film credit, if I'm not
I
mistaken.
believe you're right.
But
his
to
best?
me, Dream Warriors is, I think, the first true sequel, and it might be my favorite sequel of the franchise, which is saying a lot, but it feels the most like a natural extension of the first one.
It might be the first true Nightmare on Elm Street movie, right? Like, knowing where Freddy goes, this is the birth of the Freddy we all know.
Yeah.
You know, like when you're 10 years old and you think about this character, the person you're thinking about is not the one that you see in 1 and 2.
It's not the extended arms, reaching out and looks all goofy. You want the guy that says, "Welcome to prime time, bitch."
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
It's the Goldfinger of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise.
Yeah.
It gets every element right. Like you said, everything you associate with this character comes from this movie. But
Right.
I love the energy of it. It feels a little bit like a comic book movie to me, kind of like there's an element of like, I guess maybe an X-Men feel is what I get from it because of the
Yes.
kids kind of coming together and fighting off this monster. I love that Nancy comes back, that she returns.
She's Professor
to help
X.
these kids. Yeah, and I love. I just love the concept. I love that all these kids are in a mental institution and they're all kind of outcasts and nobody believes in them, and they kind of have to get each other's backs and believe in each other. I love that, and it's also Patricia Arquette, her first film role. So a lot of it's insane how many firsts are in this movie. But do you guys enjoy this? Do you think this is a solid entry in the franchise?
I think it's when Nightmare on Elm Street finally came into its own. It's when we finally start to see some really inventive kills that are like it's like that the nightmare sequences kind of bleeding into the reality, because in the first one, all the nightmare deaths are happening, kind of like as like an invisible force, either somebody gets sucked into the bed or Tina gets, invisibly pulled all over the wall. But this one, we start to see the marionette sequence. We get to see Freddy come out as a TV.
Yeah, they realize they're making a dream movie,
exactly.
a nightmare movie.
We can do whatever we want. We have this nice open landscape, and so they completely went for it. And that's what I feel like is what it really contributes to how we view Freddy as, kind of an iconic character now. Is
a super being.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I love the group. I love the team. I love these mutants. I think they have a lot of personality. They have a lot of heartbreak to them. They've all really suffered because of their condition and how the outside world views them. And here is their opportunity to master their dreams through Heather's teaching or Nancy's teaching and become a squad. And it's really cool to see them come together. And then they all get murdered. And that is such a bummer. I would have liked a few of these team members to have survived for the next film rather than the three. We get 3 survivors. They move on to the 4th film. But I really would have liked this team to have survived. I would have liked the Dream Warriors to have been as much a contributing factor to the franchise as Freddy Krueger himself.
I agree. I think that's one of the biggest bummers about this movie is that all the kids get built up and then they all get killed like in the big finale, and it's like, no, I really like them. And I think that's what I was thinking when you said the second movie might have the best teen characters or the best teen cast. I really like this cast a lot. I think they're all really solid and extremely likable, and I think it might just have something to do with the characters themselves. But I really enjoy this movie a lot, and I think like the kills, like the marionettes, that scene is so disgusting and so effective, and as is the TV scene is hysterical, and it gives us arguably the best line in the franchise, "Welcome to primetime, bitch."
Yeah.
So I'm all up for that.
I do really like the characters. Kincaid and the guy that plays Will, both those guys, I feel like they had some cringy delivery to their stuff, and I'm just like,
and they're the two guys who survived from the fourth film.
No. Will's. I'm talking the wheelchair guy.
Oh yeah.
So Kincaid, yes,
the Wizard Master.
Yeah. He just had some delivery stuff that it just...
Yeah, maybe. I actually like the Wizard Master a lot. I wish he had survived.
Agreed.
Jennifer Rubin as the punk girl. What's her name? Taryn?
I can't remember.
Taryn,
yeah,
I think?
I think so.
Yeah.
That one hurts the most, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, she is so, to use her word, she is so bad, right? And when Freddy turns her addiction against her and he grows the syringe needles and jams them into her arms, that is a heartbreaking death. And maybe that's why she's got to go, because you really have to feel that moment. Mm-hmm. I would have much preferred her and the Wizard Master to stick around than Kincaid and the other guy.
Yeah.
And certainly Patricia Arquette.
What?
She's dull.
Yeah.
You what?
I don't like Patricia Arquette.
Oh wow!
What?
I don't like her.
Really?
I just don't. I'm not a big fan of her performance.
In general, or just in this movie?
I don't want to be mean, but in general.
Oh no way! What's wrong with you?
I'm just not a Patricia Arquette fan.
Oh no! I was really bummed when Patricia Arquette, spoilers, doesn't return for the next one.
Oh, I mean, I agree on that. I agree. When you have the character come back, you want the actor to come back.
You just want continuity. You don't care about. You don't care about Patricia Arquette.
No, I don't.
You're a terrible person.
Never cared about Patricia.
No, I did not.
I like her. I mean, she's sweet. There's a genuine sweetness to all the characters.
I like her.
I think her character gets too much time. I'd rather be with the other guys.
She's the main character.
Yeah,
Joe.
I don't like it. Should be the others. Should be Taryn. This would be
whatever.
Oh my god! So this is also the movie that gives us kind of more of a mythologizing for Freddy. Like he's all of a sudden the bastard son of 1,000 maniacs or whatever it is. And
I think it's only 100 maniacs.
1,000 is it's even a little too ridiculous for this franchise. But the bastard son of 100 maniacs. He now has an origin story, and then they bring in the whole element of like you have to. The consecrated ground, the holy water, and I love all that. I love that there's suddenly this whole process to killing him, and it's very like there's a ritual to it, and it seems very final, and it's not, but it does seem important in the movie.
Freddy in this film feels like the movie Monster, right? He becomes or he steps up to the same field. I don't know my sports metaphors. I'm doing a terrible job. But he can stand next to Frankenstein and Dracula at this point. Like, he is our modern equivalent of those Universal monsters.
Yeah.
Is how I'm awkwardly trying to get to that point. And this film itself is the most celebratory of cinema in general. When they're able to go full fantasy, they're able to reference all kinds of things. That final sequence where it becomes a Jason and the Argonauts, Ray Harryhausen moment is like brilliant sequence, and how that's cut together with what's going on in the dream world. It's awesome. This is Nightmare on Elm Street rising to Fangoria. This is the era where it's about the kills and the effects, and celebrating the filmmakers behind these effects as much as the effects themselves.
Every kill is a complete set piece. Like here's this kill. Like, there was so much setup with number one. There was so much weirdness going on with number two, but this one, and maybe to its detriment, can get kind of formulaic in the sequels from here on out. It sets this tone for like, here's your teenager, here's the set piece kill, and
4 and 5
and we'll kill
basically
Freddy.
replicate
watch, rinse,
this film.
repeat.
Yeah. So I think there's it was a great start, and we'll kind of get some repetitiveness from it.
Yeah, and I also one of the other things I like, and aside from bringing back Nancy, they bring back John Saxon, and I love that there's a little resolution there for the characters. That I love that there are character beats in general. Again, that's not something you really see in these slasher movies.
Yeah,
they don't give the characters beats, but we see that. Especially in these first few Nightmare movies, and really, I don't know if we see it ever again.
And I like how it they team the team splits a little bit, right? So you have Nancy and the kids in the dream world, and you have John Saxon's Donald with Craig Wasson, his Dr. Neil. He's the guy from Body Double, Brian De Palma's Body Double.
Yeah.
And I like those two guys together. And I actually really like Dr. Neil's growth over the story, where he's this doubting scientific guy who can't believe that Nancy would treat these children with this wackadoo dream therapy nonsense. And then by the end, he's battling a skeleton in a junkyard. It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
I could have used more Larry Fishburne.
Oh, yes.
Yes. We did need more Larry Fishburne for sure. Like I said, it might be my favorite sequel of the series, but what do you think as far as our rating scale? Do we want to say
Freddy Snakes? Originally, it was very pink, and they had to change its color.
Green. Yeah. So, how many phallic Freddys would you give Dream Warriors?
Guess what? First one was 3.5. Second one's 3.5. This one's 3.5. All for completely different reasons.
Oh my God.
3.5. I can't get out of it, but it's like it's almost there. But I'm having a lot of fun with these, and I feel like that's the most surprising to me is how much fun I'm having with these movies.
Sure.
Go
Even
for it, Brad. What do you got?
For sure.
3.5.
There we go.
Phallic Freddy's. Yeah, 3.5. Yeah. I agree with you.
I will keep the streak going. 3.5 for Dream Warriors. And I think that's the final word.
Shawn, real quick, we started the show by saying, like, what's your favorite kill in Nightmare on Elm Street? We never said what our favorite kill in 2 was it? Did we? I guess we agreed that it was the chestburster.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which isn't even technically a kill, but that's easily the best part, for sure. I say that counts.
What about 3?
I think the Welcome to Primetime, bitch. It's just so good.
Yeah,
it's so good. The way they set it up, the way they play it out, and then the payoff is perfect.
I think that's for me too.
I'm the syringes. I think the syringes is my favorite.
Syringes
that was pretty cool. Yeah. That was pretty cool. Those pulsating sores
suckers.
on our arms.
Oh gosh. Yeah, it's so gross. All right. And so then that brings us to what I believe is still the most successful movie of the franchise, even if you adjust it for inflation.
Yep.
I think so.
I don't know if that's 100%, but this Swedish guy, he is Swedish, right? No, he's Finnish. Oh God, Rennie Harlan comes.
He's European.
He's European. Whatever he is, he's here,
he's
and
Finnish.
He was literally begging on Bob Shaye's front porch to let him direct this movie, and Nightmare on Elm Street 4: The Dream Master. How do we feel about this one, guys?
This is without a doubt my least favorite Nightmare on Elm Street movie. I said two, but it's this one. I don't like this movie. I find this movie to be really dull.
I'm okay with this one. It's definitely not my favorite. Because I don't know. With the basis of Freddy, again, in this formula that they've set up, there's stuff I can get behind. Plus, I'm such a sucker for practical effects, and so anytime there's when it comes to like we said with our other franchises, it's literally here's a stab wound, here's a bludgeoning inside a sleeping bag, here's all this stuff. But this one's got here's a person turning into a cockroach, here's a pizza.
Yes, those are great moments.
Yeah,
they are great, and the cockroach moment is I would put top 5 kills of the franchise.
I think I'm right there with you.
The pizza's fun.
It's fun. It's fun. Agreed. And I think for the most part, what that's doing is keeping my attention somewhat. But yeah, it literally feels like an MTV music video of Nightmare on Elm Street.
When you watch that documentary, Never Sleeps Again, they keep saying this is the MTV Freddy.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's funny. I wrote down my thing for that, and then when they said it, I was like, that's that's bizarre, but it just fits, you know?
It's 100% accurate.
Yeah.
And I wrote it. I mean, it felt like they were given a soundtrack and they were like, put this entire thing in the movie. Like, I don't care where it goes, put every single damn song will end up in this final cut. And I agree. This is the first one, even though the second one technically, I guess you would call it a stumble, it does enough interesting stuff that I think that saves it. Nightmare on Elm Street 4 is the first one where it feels like, okay, I think we've got, I think we've said pretty much what we need to say, which is odd because there are things in the movie that are great. Like Aaron was saying, I think one of the best things about the movie is the fact that the dog pisses fire and brings Freddy back to life, which was apparently a facetious joke. Like James Cameron asked Rennie Harlan, he was like, "Oh, you're doing the next Nightmare movie? How does Freddy come back this time?" And Rennie Harlan just like kind of as a tossed off comment goes, "Oh, a dog pisses on him and he comes back to life," and then was like, "Yeah, you know what? Let's put that in the movie." and that's what the whole movie feels like. It feels like 100%. Literally.
And I believe this was also going on during a writer's strike, so it felt like stuff was just kind of being made up, on the day. And like here's something that Rennie drew up as like a storyboard. Let's just do it around this and try to figure it out.
Yeah, I don't know.
And it's absolutely not scary at all.
No.
Like it is a fun, ridiculous movie,
but
and it is. I don't know, fun. I don't know if I call it fun, but it's ridiculous, and it's not a horror movie.
And to be, that's kind of what I want from my Nightmare on Elm Street movies going forward after Nightmare 3. Is I don't necessarily want it to be a horror film. I want it to be a weirdo movie. I want it to be a bizarro film. But the Nightmare films become comedies. Like Freddy becomes a jokester. He's a trickster character.
Yeah.
In the traditional sense.
That becomes very apparent in this movie. I think that this is the turning point for sure, where it's like 3 kind of teased it, but this one it's like, nope, he's now like a walking punchline, essentially. What I wish for Nightmare on Elm Street 4 is that it has all these stupid things happening, and somehow it's just stupid instead of like entertaining stupid.
The problem,
it's like, how can a movie that has one of its primary characters like practicing karate and use their karate on Freddy, how can it be so like just not dumb in the wrong way?
Because the teens are not interesting, right?
They really aren't. And then they kill off the only characters we like, even though one of them is recast and not nearly as good.
I will argue for Lisa Wilcox as Alice. I do like her, especially in part 5 when she comes back in that film. And I like Cockroach Girl. I think she's pretty good in the movie. But the dudes in particular in Nightmare 4 are dry hunks of wood.
God.
And often they're not even hunks.
For sure. Yes, that is the biggest thing, is this movie doesn't have any for the first time, we don't have any characters we can really connect to other than Lisa Wilcox. And the other thing is, the first part of the movie, when we have the characters we're connected to from the last one, is more interesting. And once we lose them, the movie kind of loses me. I'm like, I don't really care. But at least we get that amazing workout sequence where what's her name turns into a cockroach, and it's appropriately disgusting and fantastic.
I definitely wake up when I'm watching this movie for every kill.
Yeah.
It's just all the space between the murders.
Yeah.
So I don't really have anything more to say about Dream Master. What do you guys think?
I'm good.
Same.
Good.
Same.
So how many
Roach Motels?
How many Roach? Yeah, let's do Roach Motels, because that is the standout kill on this movie. I think we can all agree. How many Roach Motels, Aaron?
I think I'm hovering between
3.5.
I'm hovering between a 2.5 and a 3, because I feel like I want to like the kills enough, and I like I said, the practical effects, but again, it's just not enough to hang on to. So I think I'm going to go 2.5, because I'll still watch a 2.5 movie.
Yeah, I give it 2. What about you, Brad?
2.
Okay, so moving on to The Dream Child, which is, I guess, an attempt to reclaim the more scary or frightening elements or unsettling elements of Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah,
It kind of-
supposedly.
yeah, it tries to get back to basics and just can't.
But at
I
the
think-
same time, like they went into production immediately. Like director Stephen Hopkins was hired in February and the film was due out in August.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're right. This is another one that was released less than a year after its predecessor.
Yeah. So it shows.
Again,
I mean, it definitely shows.
Yes, it absolutely shows. And it's honestly, this is probably my least favorite of these original.
Interesting.
This original series, because 4 at least has the kind of like bombast, and it has a level of like, oh, what? Let's just do whatever. The 5th one's the one that feels like really tired to me. Like it's just kind of like, where are we going? What are we doing? There are things I like about it. I like Lisa Wilcox in it, and I like the ideas behind it, but I'm hard pressed to think of like something particularly outstanding about it. I guess the motorcycle kill is really good.
I believe he's a mantercycle.
That kill,
Mantercycle.
the mantercycle kill, is amazing.
Yeah, that's pretty great. And the dinner scene when they are force feeding her friend and she
So gross.
is losing her mind. It's disgusting. So there are, again, it speaks to our point that there's always something to admire. But personally, I'm not a fan of this one.
Guys, this is the one I remembered the least of, and I really dug this one.
Aaron, same. I remembered nothing about
Oh my
5 going
God.
into this, and I had a total blast.
I really enjoyed it. There's something, and like I said, like the thing that I love the most about this franchise is when it fully embraces exactly what it is. And it starts getting like becoming this surrealist nightmare and like, going through time loops and becoming a mantercycle, putting
Entering
Super
the
Freddy,
dreams
comic
of
books.
her baby.
The dreams of the baby. I was thinking the one big complaint that I had about this was I'd like to see
More.
them
Get crazier.
get crazier,
More.
but
Another hour.
I'd like it to almost be a mystery and not know she's pregnant for the entire
agree.
movie, and
That
then
would've
all of
been
a sudden
awesome.
at the end, you're coming through my baby's dreams, that
would've
kind of
been
stuff.
awesome.
That
Yes.
was
That would have, I think, helped a lot. I think that would have helped him.
Yeah.
But I
It
also
would've benefited.
really, really, really enjoy the expansion of the bastard son of 100 Maniacs
yes,
stuff.
yes.
I think that works really well, and I like the ghost of Freddy's mother
The ghost nun
becoming
is
a character.
great. But it gives each of our characters something to do, and even though it's wild and outlandish, and we're given no time to do anything, the MC Escher thing looks awful, but it's a great concept.
Also, the Take on Me cartoon comic book
Yes.
sequence is amazing.
Oh,
Super
yeah, that is-
Freddy.
that is
Super
very-
Freddy.
Super Freddy.
Yo, I'm all about that Super Freddy.
Right?
I want
Yeah.
that He-Man action figure.
I think, I guess for me, it's just the story. I'm not into it. I'm like, I don't care. And it's really 4 and 5 I kind of put hand in hand. But yeah, I agree. I think you're right. There's a lot of, again, each kill sequence gives a level of creativity that you don't see anywhere else. And at the very least, they're trying in that regard. I think by this point, I was just tired of the Alice storyline. I didn't care about like, oh, she has a kid now, and what are they going to do? I think I was done with that.
But like,
whole
I feel
thing.
like they give Alice so much more in this film. Like, she is a legit character, and you really do care for her experience. At least I did, and I like when it comes to the final battle. The stakes are so high in this one compared to the previous efforts. Like I feel like this film is really reaching for an emotional payoff that the other films, or at least 4 and even 3, don't offer.
Yeah, that's fair. That is true.
And that manticycle.
Maybe it's just because I watched 4 and 5 back to back, and I was just kind of like, I watched them in one sitting, and I was just kind of like,
You can't do that. You have to give yourself 7 to 8 months in between, like the regular audience got.
like the original theatrical release.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So Dream Child. If there's nothing else we have to say about it, let's give it a final rating. how many, I guess,
blue
Freddy
filters.
Babies? Blue filters, yeah.
So
All
much
right.
blue filter.
Let's do blue filters. How many blue filters will you give Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child?
Put me back in the 3.5 holding club.
Yeah.
We back,
Oh
baby.
my God.
We're back, baby.
You
What
put
about you,
this
Brad?
on the same level as 3 and 1?
I don't know why. I find the faults of each of them equal to the heights of the others. Like none of them are perfect, but they're giving me exactly what I want in a not exactly what I want because I'm not giving them up above 3.5 stars. You're not getting 4 stars from me.
I'm really curious to see where we go.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Oh, the heights will go.
Brad, what about you? What do you give it?
I give it 3 blue filters.
Come
Okay.
on.
No,
You know,
three.
you know you
Three.
want to give it
Three.
more. He wants to give more.
I'm gonna give it 2 blue filters. I associate this and 4. I kind of put them in the same wheelhouse, but that brings us to Freddy's Dead, the not final nightmare. I thought I didn't like this movie. I kind of love Freddy's Dead.
Oh, Shawn.
I think it's amazing.
Oh,
It is
Shawn.
so much fun. But where do we feel? How do we feel?
Aaron,
Which side of the table we want to start on?
I think we should start with Aaron.
My side?
Your side.
The hot garbage side? Because this one is not good. This is like the nail in the coffin to everything that had the highs and the lows. This is like showing off so much of the lows of this franchise because are the kills memorable?
Oh, you want me to answer?
I'm
I feel
asking.
like if I answer, that's going to spoil some of my
it's gonna spoil
opinion.
for it. Well,
I don't want to spoil my
I
opinion.
think they
let's just
are.
get
I think
into
they're
it. So I think
fantastic.
it's the hot garbage. Where do you stand on this one?
Oh, Sean's right. Freddy's Dead is great. Freddy's Dead is great.
You're insane.
Freddy's Dead is the best sequel.
It is so clear that they were like, all right, we're done. Just do whatever the hell you want. Get it all out there. And there is no logic. There's nothing. There's no coherency. It is just put it all on screen.
He's absolutely
Every
right,
idea
Brad.
you can possibly think of, and it is hysterical. It is so funny and has so much energy, and they clearly do not care at all. So they were just like, we're just doing F it. We're doing whatever.
I think they do care. I think director Rachel Talalay, who was with New Line Cinema, she started out as an assistant and worked her way up to being director.
Very cool.
She was enamored with John Waters, and she really wanted to bring a John Waters aesthetic to the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. And I think she succeeds tremendously, and maybe people did not want that, but that is what we are getting with Freddy's Dead. It is a full-blown comedy,
Yes.
with a final boy protagonist that turns out to not be the final boy. And I find that to be really, really interesting. I like the reveal of who the real hero of this story is. And I love the cartoon attitude of Freddy Krueger in this movie, where he really has embraced his commercial nature, and he is a hoot.
It is part Looney Tunes, and then it
Yes.
shows, and then it just reiterates, oh yeah, this dude's a child rapist, okay? I don't think you can go from those extremes.
Yes,
and
you sure can. Go
How?
watch Pink Flamingos. Go watch Polyester. Go watch Female Trouble.
that's not for the mass audience.
I agree. Is Freddy's Dead for the mass audience? No, I totally understand why people did not respond positively to this film, but it deserves revisitation, and I think it is way more interesting than people give it credit.
It has Tom and Roseanne in it.
Yeah, and you know what? They're fun.
They're what?
They're fun.
Ugh.
Yeah, I'm with Brad. I think the cartoon sensibilities. I get what Aaron's saying. It is by all appearances, it should not be a good movie. But because it is so insane, and because everyone is clearly just having the time of their life, and they were just kind of like, you know what, this is the last one. Let's just. Who cares? To me, that imbues it with a manic energy that is just missing from the past couple entries.
I hate that Shawn and I love it for opposite reasons.
I know,
I'm like,
this
is the one with the most heart and the most thought and the most character.
No.
I don't think you're wrong. I don't think you're wrong, but there is such an element of like they clearly.
I don't think they know what they're doing.
No,
like,
there's no sense of preserving the legacy.
Well,
of like, it feels like at the end of the movie when the credits roll and they're showing clips from the original Nightmare. It's like you guys didn't care about that. You treat him like a joke in this movie.
That might be true, but I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I do think that Rachel Talalay has a vision in this film, and it does run against previous entries. But I do think she has a true point of view, and I appreciate it in the film. And I also think the cast is a lot of fun. I think the characters in this movie are rather engaging, and I'm much more invested in their stories in this film than the previous two films.
I've got nothing because I don't think Rachel Talalay's.
I mean,
I don't feel like her strengths are coming through with this because
she is not as visual a director as Stephen Hopkins or Rennie Harlan. That is for sure.
No.
I mean, the film does have a little bit of a TV quality.
The Breckenmeyer video game.
It's great.
Is what?
It's great.
I love that.
I'm walking away.
Like, look,
I'm walking away. I gotta walk away. I gotta walk away.
Could it have been more visually arresting? Probably. But as a concept and as a jokey nature in the Power Glove, it still all works for me. Do I want more from that animated sequence? Sure. But it lands. I think the death in this film that is the most upsetting is the eardrum Q-tip death.
Oh my God.
Agreed.
It is brutal. But I really like the death of our hero John Doe when he finally lands on that bed of spikes.
That's pretty cool.
But
it just doesn't.
It's a real surprise. It is a twist.
It feels like it's all over the place. It's a twist. You say it's a twist. I feel like they just didn't have any direction of what they were trying to do.
They knew exactly what they're doing. And the idea of Freddy sending this dude out like a piece of bait, like he's throwing fishing line out there so he can bring his daughter back and bring fresh meat to Springhaven. Like, I really think that is a cool concept.
Cool.
I agree there. I think I think there's a lot of you can't dismiss the movie completely because even though there's clearly we're just throwing everything against the wall mentality and anything goes mentality, there are things like the hearing aid scene and those moments where they're kind of keeping you on the edge of your seat. But then there's also the 3D sequence at the end that I think just brings everything home and like just really summarizes what this movie is going for. Just the sheer entertainment value. It's like as gimmicky as possible with the characters wearing 3D glasses, waving their weapons at the screen. That's the spirit of this movie to me. Is just this kind of like, yeah, now it's a 3D movie. Who cares? This is exactly what it is.
I care. It's wonderful.
Brad cares and he loves it. And
the box
I love
set,
it too.
The box set that I have, the original DVD box set of Nightmare on Elm Street, has 3D glasses, and you can select to watch that sequence in 3D on your TV at home. Man. And it doesn't work now like it didn't work then, but I do.
I don't think it ever worked, by the way.
No, I you're right. It never worked. The only person phoning it in Freddy's Dead is Yaphet Kotto. And that is a real bummer because I love Yaphet Kotto.
You think he's phoning it in? I don't think he's giving anything to work with. I wanted more Yaphet Kotto.
I agree. I don't think like his character is really weak, and it's such a shame that you have this incredible talent in this movie, and that's all he's given, and that's all he delivers. That's if I had a heartbreak about Freddy's Dead, it would be the Yaphet Kotto usage.
Yeah, it's a shame that he didn't get more. I don't know if I agree that he's phoning it in. I more agree that he's kind of just like, oh, I'm here. Let's do this. What are we doing?
And I like the exploring of the mythology of Freddy. I like going back in time. I like seeing him as a teenager. I like seeing his dad, played by Alice Cooper.
That was pretty cool.
That whole sequence in the backyard when young Maggie stumbles upon her mother being murdered by her dad is upsetting. And I feel bad for that child actor. I'd like to talk to that child actor, make sure she's okay. Because she definitely saw some horrible things and was treated terribly by Robert Englund.
Yeah, I think the movie is... It's like... It's great in the way that Rocky 3 and 4 are kind of great, where they were just kind of like, now it's a cartoon and deal with it. And that's how I feel about Freddy's Dead. But I think it's a successful movie. Like Brad's saying, I think what it's going for, what Talalay was going for, is clearly on screen, and it's very definitely a distinctive vision. But it's also in complete contrast with what's come
to
before.
me, this is the film where they throw up their hands, to use your phrase, and go, Freddy's a comedy. You know, Nightmare on Elm Street's a comedy. Welcome to Comedy Land. And this is what I've been wanting them to do the whole franchise.
So I think that's that. So how many Freddy Power Gloves do you want to give Freddy's Dead?
I mean, I'm not going to completely disown it, but it's not a good movie for me. The tonal shifts just are too extreme, and it just doesn't mesh together. If this was the Rocky franchise, this is Rocky 5, and Freddy is Tommy Gunn, and I want to punch him in the face. This gets 2 stars. Or 2, what do we call Power Gloves. 2 Power Gloves.
2 Power Gloves.
This is everything I want in a Nightmare on Elm Street film. I think it is a riot. I think Robert Englund is in top form as Freddy Krueger in this movie. I like the cast a lot. And I like the tone of the film more than anything. And so 4 Power Gloves.
Man, all right. I will give it a 3. I'll give it 3 Power Gloves. I think it's definitely... I like see what Aaron's saying. I see what Brad's saying, but I err more on the side of Brad because I think it's so much fun. And there's such a level of creative insanity to it that I have to give it props. And that was supposedly going to be the end of the franchise. It was. Freddy was dead. And then literally, 2-3 years later, they were like, hey, Wes, do you have any ideas? And he said, sure, yeah, I got an idea. And that brought us to Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which the first time I saw these movies was the only one that really made me sit up and pay attention. But where do you guys sit? Brad, we'll start with you. Where do you sit on Wes Craven's New Nightmare?
I really like New Nightmare. It is called a proto-scream, and I agree with that. I'm a sucker for metafiction in general. And so the opportunity to watch Wes Craven act as himself and Robert Englund act as himself and John Saxon act as himself is really, really fun. But, the star, Heather Langenkamp, as Heather is phenomenal in this movie. She kicks butt. She's way better in this film than either of her previous Nightmare entries.
I agree.
I think she's just so good and compelling. And the film's scary.
I'm right there with Brad. It's a great entry, and I'm with him. Like meta, kind of movies about movies are I eat them up, and so this is a great entry, and I just really like the way that they kind of revitalize this Freddy, but essentially by just creating a new character, and it kind of felt like Wes. Kind of talking to the fans and kind of saying, the Freddy that I created for you guys, with the sequels, he never really went to the places I wanted him to go. This is what I wanted to create. I want to create a real monster, not some guy.
Happy Meal toy.
What's that?
Yeah.
Happy Meal toy.
Exactly. Or, somebody, dialing into a power glove or, whatever else he's doing in Freddy's Dead.
The shade is real.
But I really dug, I don't know, just everything about this one. This is a really fun one.
I agree. I think New Nightmare, it still holds up. It's so good. And I think, like you said, Aaron, this is really Wes Craven coming in and reclaiming his creation and saying, this is what it's about. This is what he's capable of when he's working. I think Heather Langenkamp, I think I was shocked watching this movie the first time through because I think she's so sweet and she's so endearing in the first and third ones, but she's not great. She's
a child actor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, her inexperience shows, especially in the first one. But in New Nightmare, like you said, she's so good and she's very natural and she hits all the big emotional beats. I am very invested in her character and it's so good. I will say, I think the thing that for me this time around kind of hurt the movie is the fact that it's just not as surreal as the other ones in terms of the dream sequences. I think that's the only thing working against it. I love the real world stuff. I love the fact that everyone's playing themselves, but that comes at the expense of the creativeness of Freddy's
of the concept
stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I agree. And I think it's because he wants to reclaim the terror of the character. I don't think Wes Craven can make a super inventive, wacky nightmare horror sequence without venturing into comedy. And I think that's what he thought that the other films were doing. And he really did not want to have like a Freddy shark glove sequence. He wanted to be powerful and vicious and mean, and to do that for him, he could only get so surreal. I think at the ending, it's kind of cool when the movie becomes the movie, and John Saxon becomes his character from from Nightmare on Elm Street. I think that's interesting, and they go down to the pits of hell and all that stuff. But you would like it to be cranked up just a little bit.
Yeah. I think that's the only thing, and it's again, I wouldn't necessarily trade the tone of the movie or the concept of the movie for that because I think that's what makes the movie so good. But I did miss, especially with my newfound appreciation of Freddy's Dead, I missed that. I missed that bonkers sensibility.
Yeah, and similar to Freddy's Dead, and I guess even a little bit in the Dream Child, when you see Robert Englund out of the makeup, he is also still really great to watch.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he's such a fantastic actor. And the scene where he's painting, his version of Freddy on the canvas, like, his performance over the phone to Heather is awesome.
Yeah.
It's great. I love it. Everyone's great in this movie, and it's I almost want to call it, I know it's not his masterpiece, but I almost want to call it Wes Craven's masterpiece. I feel like it's such a statement of purpose for him. And I love the way it ends with his little note to Heather saying, "Thanks for playing Nancy once more." It feels like such a knowing. It's just a love letter to the character.
It felt like a sweet, sort of just bookend to this franchise, and starting and stopping with Wes, or should have starting and stopping with this nice, neat little package where everything sandwiched in the middle is just a real mishmash of who knows what from every different perspective of everybody that thinks they know what Freddy is about. And here's what Wes thinks, and here's what everybody else thinks.
I agree with a lot of what you're saying, Aaron. But the true joy of Nightmare on Elm Street is that stuff all squished in the middle.
I agree with you. No, yeah. I'm 100% with you.
And what
I'm saying I like that these are the bookends.
Yeah, well, the slices of bread. It's a very tall Homer Simpson sandwich, but I like all that meat in the middle, man.
So what do we think? What is our rating scale for this one? We're exhausting all the potential rating scales, but do we want to say
Rexes?
Oh yeah,
Rexes.
Rexes.
Yes,
Rexes.
There you go. Rexes. How many Rexes do you give New Nightmare?
Take it back. 3.5.
Yes.
Did it again.
Brad.
3.5. I give it 3.5.
I give it 3.5.
I just want Aaron to love something.
I know.
I wish he knew the love I had for Freddy's Dead.
I wish I did too. It's not happening.
There's plenty to love coming up because next we had the long-awaited showdown that everybody'd been begging for ever since. Which one was it? Wasn't there a Friday the 13th movie?
Jason Goes to Hell.
Mm-hmm. Jason Goes to Hell. Freddy pops up, pulls the mask down, and that started the conversation, which wasn't... It was like, what, a decade until they actually followed up on it.
It was a long time. A long time.
Yeah, and it finally came out, summer 2003. I remember I was in high school and everyone was freaking out about this movie. I couldn't have cared less, and I only just saw it for the first time for this episode of Missing Frames Between Takes. So, guys, where do we stand on Freddy versus Jason? Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah.
No,
it's not, because I know what this guy across me is thinking. I feel like they successfully bridge this gap in kind of a fun way of pulling one character's mythos into another character's, and kind of successfully. I like how Freddy is this mastermind of the dream world and kind of hell in a way, and so he manipulates Jason to
resurrect
himself. I find that kind of cool.
It's awesome.
I find that kind of cool. And there's other parts that I feel like are just kind of lame, but
sure,
there's some good parts here to be had if you're just going to have fun with it.
Brad, what about you?
I saw this on my 24th birthday to a packed house at Lee Highway Multiplex when it still existed. And it was one of my favorite movie-going experiences.
It would be.
That crowd went wild for Freddy versus Jason, and I was right there with them.
I had that same experience, but with Anaconda.
I never saw Anaconda. I still have not seen
I saw
Anaconda.
I saw Anaconda at the Virginia Center Commons 14, whatever it was at the time, and it was just, my mom said, "Do you want to go see a movie?" I saw Anaconda with my mom. We were two of the only white people in the audience, and it was fantastic.
I saw this by myself, and I felt like everyone around me were my best friends.
You should have gone with your mom.
Oh my God.
It was such a communal experience, and it was probably like the Alamo Drafthouse's greatest nightmare, because no one was silent.
Yeah.
Like everybody was screaming the whole film.
Yeah.
I missed whole chunks of dialogue watching it. And what I do love about the movie is what you were saying is, like, I think it is a perfect, like, if you're going to pit these two together, the idea of Freddy taking Jason and turning him into a weapon to regain his foothold on Earth, I think is genius. And it really makes Jason into a sympathetic character at times, which is astonishing to me. Like, when you get to go into Jason's nightmare world and you get to see this broken child of a human being that he is behind that hockey mask, like, there is true empathy there, and I find that fascinating.
Yeah.
I do agree that it is a great way to get them together. I just wasn't into the movie. I think a lot of it has to do with the characters were constantly forced to follow these human characters I could not care less about. I watched it with my friend TC, who's been on the show before, and we were just like, when is Freddy going to verse Jason? What's happening? Why are we watching these kids?
They were pretty annoying.
There are things I like them.
You like them?
I like the kids.
Which ones did you like?
I mean, I like Monica Keena as Laurie. I think she is solid.
She's great. She's great.
No, Jason Ritter is a little bit.
I don't like anybody else.
I mean, I like the guy who wants to be Jason Mewes. Like, they cast a guy to be Jason Mewes. I enjoy him.
Yes.
I like the party sequence when they're all doing a kegger in the cornfield, and those characters are so insanely annoying in the best possible way, because you can't wait for Jason to come in and start throwing his machete around.
That's what I thought. The point, like, I was like, do we want to root for these people to get killed?
The people in the cornfield, yes.
Yes. Yeah, why not?
Well, even from the get-go, like, the first scene, and the boyfriend, of course, gets killed right away, but he was, like, such a jerk, and it was like, I don't like him.
Well, yeah.
I don't really like these other people.
You are supposed to be okay with him being pretzeled in his bed. Like,
but I loved that, but I didn't want to spend any time with these characters.
That more just gives
the fact that I had to.
It just gives you moments.
So much time
it doesn't
with
give
them.
you a story of anything to follow. It's
I
just
don't
like,
know. I think there's that whole deal with her and her dad, and Jason Ritter thinks he was a murderer, and there's some confusion there. She's unsure of her feelings.
He's a murderer.
What?
He doesn't think he's a murderer.
Jason Ritter thinks that her dad's the killer.
Oh! I think you said Jason Ritter thinks Jason Ritter.
No, that's not what I said. Stay focused, Aaron. Pay attention to every syllable that I'm
sorry.
screaming.
I'm losing on this convoluted plot.
I was not into the plot at all. And I mean, the Freddy vs. Jason stuff was fun to watch.
He turns into a demon Freddy.
Yeah, but maybe it's because I wasn't really in, like, I don't know the Friday the 13th movie, so I just didn't. At the end of the day, I was like, the appeal of Freddy versus Jason to me doesn't go further than the idea of it. And when you actually see it, it's like, okay, now these guys are just slashing each other.
So much fun.
That's it. Like, to me, it was like, is the payoff as... Does the payoff match the idea or the concept of Freddy versus Jason?
I think Ronnie Yu is a really interesting visual director.
Really?
Yes. I think he is. I think he delivers some really great stuff in there. And that moment when he is pulled out of her dream into the real world, into the cabin, and then he realizes it, and the way the camera pulls back and sees him in the fire, and then we have the standoff, I think that is all visually arresting.
Huh.
Ronnie Yu's a good director.
Meh.
You know what? Go screw you guys. I quit.
It feels like I don't know. I think one thing that really stands out is it just feels I don't like to use this term, but super dated. And
I agree with that, but they're all dated. All movies are dated. They're made in a time and a place, and they become dated.
No. But in like the worst possible way for this one. This one feels like it was completely funded by spicy nacho Doritos and Mountain Dew, and I don't care.
You are just yes, I agree with you 1,000%. It's anchored in a time and a place.
Yeah,
and I appreciate that.
It doesn't do anything for
just like the MTV Nightmare film that you like so much. It's anchored in a time and a place.
I don't like the MTV Nightmare.
Yeah, you do. You like 4. You
liked
loved
it, okay.
4. You liked 4 more than this one.
Oh. Wait, which one?
Dream
no,
Master.
5.
No,
like 5 best.
Yeah, but you also like 4. You were talking about 4. You liked it.
Okay.
No, let's play it back.
Cockroach.
No, okay. I'm just saying.
Play that. I just wasn't into it. The appeal of the concept doesn't pay off because at the end of the day, it's just two guys like slashing at each other. And suddenly Freddy's like a kung fu, like he's like doing karate kicks. And like, it was just like, where did Freddy Krueger
He learned it from Ronnie Yu, who makes kung fu horror films.
That must be it. But yeah, this is not a favorite for me.
You got to take away a star for Kelly Rowland's monologue.
Well, I mean, there's so much offensive stuff in all of these things.
That was so bad.
I mean,
no, but not even that was offensive. It was just bad.
Sure, but like you can say that about every character in all these. Like every teenager in all of these movies delivers some really atrocious lines of dialogue.
I'm not even saying how she delivered. Like just the fact that it was delivered. Like it was just like
You could say that about every single one of them. There is a moment like that in every single one of the Nightmare films.
I agree with Aaron.
The only reason you say that is because of your Destiny's Child hate. Get the hell off.
That too. It was just the fact that after she says all that stuff and has her moment, she just gets killed immediately, which is almost
pro
the
Beyonce.
punchline
Thank you very much.
I like this movie a lot. I think it's great from the jump. I love the extreme close up on Freddy's eyes as he delivers his monologue, and you learn the backstory. It has kind of an Escape from New York apocalyptic kind of a setup. This feels like a near future dystopian environment with the kids of is it Springhaven? I'm getting all confused now.
Springwood.
The kids of Springwood being put into these asylums and given all these drugs, and I don't know. I think it's an inventive, fun movie that certainly feels like it was made in the early aughts, Aaron. But I love Doritos.
So
I do too.
I guess in terms of the rating scale,
Jesus,
if we were going to rate it, how many Kelly Rowland monologues would you give it on a scale from 1 to 5?
No, let's at least go with what's the drug that they give them?
Hypocil, Hypnosil.
Hypnosil. Let's do Hypnosil, so it's not.
Thank you.
we can leave Kelly Rowland out.
Thank
of this.
you.
Okay. How many Hypnosils will you give it, Aaron?
I'll give it 2.5 Hypnosils and hope that I don't have to remember much of it.
I give it 3.5 Hypnosils.
I give it 1.5.
Oh yeah,
I would watch Freddy versus Jason any day over the original Nightmare on Elm Street.
I'm being honest. I envy being able to see a movie like that because it does alter your perception of seeing it with a crowd and seeing it where it's all hyped up.
I agree.
And you have this mindset where it's like it's an event. you know, and you kind of want that.
The original ending of this movie, the last scene was supposed to be Freddy and Jason in hell, and then the curtain would pull back and there would be
Pinhead, right?
Pinhead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that would have been
That would have been great.
Yep.
That would have been great.
That would have given it an extra half star from me.
Yeah.
You bastards.
Next on the list, and finally on the list, we all were crazy enough to just keep the nightmare going and watch this reboot, which I think we all accidentally just decided to go for. I think you guys watched it, and I was like, all right, I guess I'm watching it too. So we watched the 2010 remake of Nightmare on Elm Street. How do we feel about that, guys?
It's a movie.
Is it, though?
Nothing. I love Jackie Earl Haley. I always have, always will. Loved him in Breaking Away.
That's what you go to?
That's why that is 100% where I go to, where he punches the time clock. That's great. But yeah, like it does nothing new, and the fact that everything is just dull. What is the dude's new?
I think what's interesting about the end of the film is how it reveals this idea that the children outed Freddy as a pedophile, and the parents murdered him for that reason, or murdered Freddy for that reason. And then there was a question of whether or not the children actually were touched or not.
Yeah, but then it turned out to be the exact same thing. I agree with you.
Yeah,
but it turned out. Oh yeah, no,
but
it wasn't what we thought it was.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But
So,
that question there at a moment is interesting.
Agreed. But
it doesn't amount to anything. I agree.
No, it doesn't. And this movie takes whatever was good, whatever was fun, whatever was inventive about Nightmare on Elm Street, and it just gets rid of all of it. And it's like, let's just make it grim and boring.
So dull.
It's so dull. It is so, like, every character is so immensely unlikable, and every kill, every dream sequence, I don't even know if you call them dream sequences. They're so boring.
They are.
You
know, the one thing I will kind of give it credit for that I kind of enjoyed was the idea of him popping up in micro naps. Like, you know, how our brain just kind of fizzles out. Like we do kind of daydream or, you know, whatever. And so all of a sudden he pops up out of nowhere.
I like
that. That was pretty cool. But it doesn't do anything with it.
Like the way the beginning is shot and edited and executed. And I think Kellen Lutz is actually pretty darn good in that opening scene before he slits his own throat.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not a twihard. But I do like Kellen Lutz in this movie.
Is that what they're called?
Yeah, twihards. Yeah.
It sounds dirty.
Well, join our tribe. I love Jackie Earl Haley as well, but I think he ultimately amounts to nothing in this film, and that's a real shame.
Yeah,
it is, because he's so good. Not in this. I mean, not that he's bad in this movie, but it's just like they rob the character of so much. Like it's like a bland, weird, monster-looking guy with no personality. He's just kind of like, oh, I'm gonna get you. It's just like it's the joke of the gritty reboot, but like, man, you really feel it in this movie because the lack of humor kills it.
Well, you know, like Platinum Dunes was remaking all of the Holy Trinity films, as we established: Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Friday the 13th, and Nightmare on Elm Street. And the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake is visually arresting and kind of interesting and has some cool performances. And I would say that the protagonists are decent in it. The Friday the 13th remake is one of the best Friday the 13th films from a gore kill quality. Love the Friday the 13th remake. And this movie is a snooze.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else to say about it. I think that's really it. It really drained me.
Rooney Mara, man. We all love Rooney Mara.
Yeah. What is she doing in this movie?
She's at the beginning of her career. That's
sleepwalking.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Does this movie have anything that stands out to you as a rating scale? Because I can't think of a thing.
Micronaps.
Burn faces.
Micronaps. That's it. There we go. How many micronaps do you give Nightmare on Elm Street the remake?
I mean, I can watch it. I guess 2. I don't know. 2 micronaps.
What about you, Brad?
I think I'm going to go 1.5.
1.5?
Yeah, I really don't like it.
I don't like it either. I'll give it 1. any movie that like not only bores me but like just drains me of like the will to live, I'm just like, nope, not into it. So I am. That's it, man. God, almost. That's the entire franchise. So what's left? I mean, how do we rank these?
Oh,
I'm trying to remember what my ratings were, because as Aaron and I are talking, Aaron has my letterbox pulled up. So when I rated Nightmare on Elm Street remake 1.5, he turned my thing around and showed me that I gave it 2.5. But I'm sticking with my 1.5 on this episode.
Not even
retconned. He's retconning all the stuff.
Man, I almost feel like maybe we don't have to rank them. Maybe the world knows.
Let's at least say what is your favorite Nightmare on Elm Street movie?
Let's just go there.
Okay, let's just go with that.
Yeah.
And
sure.
Let's start with Aaron, because his opinions are clearly the worst.
Agreed.
And you're the host, so you'll go last, Shawn.
Okay. So Aaron, you say number 3?
No, I think, because I gave the thing that I came out of this that's I think surprised me the most was how positive I was, even with the stuff that I had lots of faults with. Because I just really like the idea. I like the concept of what these movies are going for, what they're striving for. Even in Freddy's Dead, I don't agree with it. There are pieces of it that I really... I enjoy and kind of get behind. It doesn't mesh for me, but I still kind of like it. And with that being said, I know this is the weirdest one, and I think I know I'm in the minority because I am on all my movie decisions. But I really like Dream Child. I like the mythology where it goes. I like the kills. I like the characters that are involved, and I just like how wild and unwieldy it is. So give me Dream Child.
Okay.
Oh, wow. All right. Brad, go ahead.
So Aaron's on his island of Dream Child.
Join me. Join me with another bad take.
I'll hang out on the smaller island of Freddy's Dead. Freddy's Dead's my favorite nightmare film.
This is the weirdest ranking ever. Oh, my gosh.
All right. Well, I'll try to bring it back to Earth.
He's on the big island.
The planet Earth island. The original. That's my favorite. I think that's the best.
We're the only two people that have ever said this in the history of Nightmare on Elm Street.
But you know what, though? That's what's amazing about the Nightmare franchise. Like you said, Aaron, you can't go wrong, really. Like it's like, I mean, I know I have my preferences, and I don't particularly love number 5 or number 4, but really they're all, and I'm not counting Freddy vs. Jason or the reboot, but I think the original Nightmare on Elm Street series that starts with Wes Craven and ends with Wes Craven is one of the most enjoyable franchises out there.
Yes.
Not even just horror. I think you can watch all of them and appreciate all of them on a sheer entertainment level. Because there's so much fun, and there's so many great ideas, and there's so much going on that I don't think there really is. I think Nightmare on Elm Street, the original, is the one that is the normal pick. But really, I'm okay with Freddy's Dead being the best as well.
Yeah,
I'll take it.
Which is fascinating. Like within the last 2 years, I've watched the Friday the 13th and Halloween. I did a whole rewatch of all that, so I now have the holy trinity of all the franchises that are pretty fresh in my head. And this was just the most fun to get through.
I agree.
Some of the others are such a slog, and you're like,
Halloween, man. 4, 5, and 6.
Maybe next Halloween we'll go through one of those.
Totally looking forward to it.
Great.
Let's do it.
Let's do the Child's Play movies.
Let's do it.
I'm into it.
Let's not forget the bastard child out there. But this has been an absolute delight. Not at all a nightmare to get through, but Brad, Aaron, I will let you fight it out over who gets to talk about the Rest in Pictures podcast that you guys are bringing to the world.
You, Aaron.
You're
the boss of Rest in Pictures. We both know that.
I'm the what?
You're the boss.
The boss.
You're the boss.
Yeah, well, we have Rest in Pictures. We're actually sticking around here in a little bit to record our next episode. So we have these cinematic heroes that we want to watch and to celebrate. And unfortunately, when they pass away, there's a lot of mourning that comes along with that. But we want to celebrate it. So, with this latest episode that we're doing tonight, we're focusing on Sid Haig. And just recently, we've done Peter Fonda. We've done Agnes Varda. We've done Penny Marshall. I'm trying to think of some others. Jim Kelly. We just go through anybody that's like that has cool stuff, but also to fill in some blind spots. So
much of film conversation is focused on today and what is happening in movies of our time. And what's great about Rest in Pictures is that it gives us an opportunity to go back and celebrate past cinema, the classics and the not so classics. And it's incredible how refreshing that can be.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such a great show. I encourage everyone out there who's not already checking it out to please check it out. And you can also, if you want, check out the other shows on the Nerd Party Network, and you can find those at thenerdparty.com. And there's lots and lots of fun stuff going on over there. Make sure to follow us at Join Nerd Party, and you can also find us, The Nerd Party, on Facebook and Instagram. And Brad, I don't mean to jump on you, but you've got a couple other podcasts as well. Tell the people at home about those.
Yeah, you can find me talking to rad people on the Itmod Chatcast feed. We just had Tom Atkins on talking about Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, as well as Takashi Miike talking about his new movie, First Love. So find me there. And then you can find me on the Comic Book Couples Counseling Podcast, where me and my wife talk about a different romantic relationship in the 4-color form every month. This month for October, we're kicking off a series on Swamp Thing and Abigail Arcane.
And I love it. I love all of it. It's all great. All these amazing podcasts. Please check them out. And I am also on the Twitter at YaySeanDoorman. Gentlemen, where can the people at home find you on the Twitter?
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd at ACoolHandFluke.
You can find me on all social medias at MouthDork, but really where you want to be is on my Untapped. Seeing how many beers I'm drinking every day.
All right. Well, that's it. That we did it. We made it through. This is longer than I think most Nightmare movies are. I hope you guys got something out of it. I know I did, and I hope our audience got something out of it too.
Welcome to podcasting, bitch.
It's time for Freddy. See all the popular guys.